podcast about game development and the diverse people who make it. My name is Jasmine. I'm a 3D environment artist from Cologne, Germany.
And my name is Ash, and I'm an environment artist in North Carolina, USA.
And today's special guest is Justin Yun. He's a 3D animator at People Can Fly. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on today. I'm so excited to have you on, Justin. That's like,
thank you.
It's like another instance of these guests that we have where, like, when we started the podcast, I wanted to have Justin on so badly because not only because he's a good friend, but we work together, and he has such a like interesting path to becoming like a 3D animator to where he is now. And I really wanted that we give him the platform to share his wisdom with us today. So I'm so glad you agreed. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited, and I've always wanted to be in a podcast, so this is like really exciting. And just for you to invite such a like random person like me, like
I definitely feel random.
Well, no, this is truly an all-inclusive podcast, I gotta
say. Wow.
We have laugh tracks too, right?
Yeah, of course.
We'll edit it in.
To support my bad jokes a little bit.
No. Kind of jumping into that first topic, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into animation in the first place?
Yeah, of course. So this is, I'll try to keep it short, but as I mentioned earlier, I like to ramble a bit and I like to get into detail. So I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. So first of all, something to say about myself is that I've always been somebody who just likes to start things and just gets interested in like a bunch of things. But I always drop out of things. Like I can never keep up, and I gain interest and I lose interest. And that's always been something that I did all my life. All my family members could tell you that. So when I was in college, I started in cinema. I did that for a couple of years, and I thought maybe like this wasn't for me. So I tried the opposite. I did some science, some math, some business courses, psychology, sociology, everything. And nothing ever really clicked. So I ended up giving up school in general, like education. I felt like it wasn't for me. So I just started working, full time, doing like waiter jobs, window washing, customer service, and a bunch of things. And eventually, I got sort of fed up with it. And I remember that in my family background, on my mom's side, who are all in Korea right now, they are all artists, or a lot of them are artists, and I thought like maybe I have some of this like art blood in me, and maybe I could like utilize that to explore art in general. So I started doing some drawings, and I got really into that. And for the first time in my life, I was actually like trying to see if I could hold on to something and just keep practicing and practicing. So I was doing a lot of 2D drawing. I wasn't that great, but I was still motivated and determined to get somewhere with it. And it was also like an experimentation to see if it's really for me. And then at some point I discovered Blender, and I started looking at tutorials for Blender and did 3D modeling and stuff. And then I found out about animation and rigging and all that stuff, and I was just amazed, and like this was so awesome, and I wanted to continue that. And I've been doing that for several months, and that's when I realized that this is something that I may want to pursue. So from there I jumped onto I started looking into schools, and a lot of these schools that I applied for needed a specific portfolio and a test at the end. So I was working towards those portfolios and really dedicated, putting all my time into it. And I got rejected to a lot of these schools, and it was quite depressing, like when you can't even make it to the first level of something, right? But I just kept going at it, and finally I got accepted to a school called Campus ADN, which is a 1-year intensive animation program, and like specifically animation. And it was a really cool school there. Like we had 3 semesters, 4 months each. and we focused on animation. And then second semester, we looked a bit at like rigging and technical animation in game engine and stuff. And then third semester was a fun one because we got to make a full game with the whole school, basically. Because in our school, there was like a different departments. So we had like the game design, level design, scripting department. We had the modeling and like more like 2D art department, and then we had the animation department. And obviously I was a part of the animation team, and we were making a game. But the thing about the third semester that was the highlight for me was that we had mentors, and a ton of mentors that were invited by our teacher. And I got paired up with a mentor that we got along really well, and he really inspired me and motivated me, and he really pushed me to do to become the best that I could. And for me, like this school, like I had waited so long to get into a school, so like this was my all in. Like I was gonna put my 100% dedication, and like this was like I wanted to make sure that this was all worth it. So with the mentor, we worked really hard to make my demo reel, and at the end of the semester, there was a showcase to show all the other mentors on what we've been working on. And from there, I got to meet Maxime Pilon. A lot of people know him. He made like frame by frame animation on Facebook and the Anim Challenge. Yeah, that's after meeting him there, he really liked what he saw, and he contacted me, and he hired me at Ludia Games, and he was my lead animator. And from there, that's basically where my adventure begins.
Nice. Like kind of like rewinding for a second. You said that you were here we go on a tangent. No, it's not a tangent.
Sorry, that was my tangent.
You said that you had to take, there was like a test for school?
Yeah.
Question mark? What was the test about? Like,
yeah. Okay. So one of the distinct tests that I could remember was for this 3-year program, and I had to. It was a lot of drawing, actually. Like a lot of the bigger programs where it's like a lot longer, they require you to do like drawing, modeling, animation, kind of like a Jasmine school, right? Like just a very broad kind of thing. So they needed to test me for everything. And yeah, the part that I struggled with most was like the drawing test. I can't remember, it was so long ago, but they asked asked me to like draw the same thing as, like, there was an image, and then they asked me to draw this exact same thing, like 1-to-1. So I guess that's like to see if I'm able to like look at reference and like kind of like imitate it, I guess.
Sure.
And little tests like this, like, oh, this is a square, like create, I don't know, like start from this square and like create a scene with it or something,
Sure,
like it was a hard test, to be honest.
It's pretty hard.
That sounds pretty hard.
It's very different to my school.
Yeah.
Because like when you reference like my school, I wouldn't compare at that level at all. Like the good thing was we had it specific to what we want to do. Like if you want to do 3D, do 3D. If you want to do 2D, do that. So I just like focused on what I wanted to do, and I think everyone else did that as well. So it was kind of easier in that sense because you didn't have to show skills in any other aspect. But that sounds like a pretty rough boot camp to like do everything.
Yeah, the worst part is it's not like a prestigious, like crazy big school. It's just like a local college. And I thought it was quite absurd. And I mean, I'm glad I didn't make it, I guess, because I got into the industry in 1 year instead of doing the school for 3 years. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the results.
And then how you said that even before you went down like the art education route, you were like fiddling with stuff in Blender and doing kind of your own like self-study and stuff like that. Like how long did you like kind of fiddle around with stuff for before you went to school? Or was it just like, oh, I'll fiddle around with it for a couple months and then you were like, oh, I really want this, and then you went on to pursue art education? Or what was up with that?
I can't I can't remember the exact timeline on how this worked, because I know
Sure.
that all this exploration was like I guess like within a year or so, or like 8 months. Like I've been really exploring that. So yeah, I think during like while I was preparing for the portfolio, I also got into doing Blender, because maybe for the portfolio they asked me to do like something 3D or something, and then I guess I like searched up like, oh, like what are 3D softwares and stuff, and then that's where I found out Blender, and then that's where I realized like, oh my god, like I'm really bad at drawing, but like I could do stuff in Blender, so I just continued from there.
It's kind of funny that you say it that way, because that's kind of how I got into modeling too. Is that in school, it was like my classmates were more into like the drawing, like 2D animation side of things, and so they had like drawn for years and years and years at that point, and then I hadn't really, like I drew but not really as intense as them.
Yeah,
So then when it came time for me to take my like first like 3D modeling class, like I didn't expect to kind of like sink into it the way that I did, but it felt good
yeah.
because everyone else was struggling and I wasn't struggling as much, which I know is kind of toxic. But it felt good. It felt good to be good at something when you were bad at the thing that everyone else was good at. So,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
it's. I want all the artists who are bad at drawing to rise up. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. No, I know how you feel, because like a lot of people say like a lot of people that I know who are in like 3D school like hate animation courses. Like it's the course that they hate the most, just because it's like animation is just so it's hard. Like it's really hard, and like I mean everything is hard for sure, but like I don't know. I personally think that like animation is like quite hard because there's a lot to think about. Um, and yeah, a lot of people they and there's a lot of like suffering through animation too, because it takes like I feel like it takes more time to like master animation, just because there's so many like little details, like not only do you have to understand like body mechanics and like actual appealing like motion and stuff, but you also have to learn like proper posing, make things appealing, like all the the art stuff from like drawing and stuff, like rhythm and shapes and things like that. Like you need to understand that for animation as well. So it's like a big jumble of like like science, a bit of science and a bit of art and stuff, and just mixed together. So I know a lot of people like in school like don't really like it. It's like the class that I know Jasmine didn't like it.
Yeah, I was complaining a lot when we were working together about this, but you know why? Because there was a lot of lacking in terms of
Yeah,
how we were being taught. Because, like, seeing you doing animation, like, I was like, okay, yeah, this is amazing and this is super inspiring to see how well you are at it, how passionate you are about it. But I
mhm,
think the way some schools maybe teach it is like lacking that level of what you explained, like that how deep it actually goes. That it's not just about opening Maya and moving some keyframes and that's
yeah,
it, which was
yeah.
basically what we covered. So that's where my passionate hate came from. But
Oh
that wasn't.
no!
Damn.
But it's but this is not about that I hate animation. Like I admire animation, and I
Mhm.
think it's an amazing aspect of like the whole like the films we see and the games we see. So I give you gladly the award of this is the most difficult discipline. Like
Yeah, it's the entry level that's like kind of daunting for a lot of
yeah.
students. It's just like it's a lot more. It takes more to put a character in and then move it and then press all of like the technical stuff from the software, compared to uh, not to like trash on like modeling or something, but like you have like a box or a sculpt, like a circle, and then you could start sculpting it and like explore and like come up with something like really cool, like just by sort of messing around and obviously using like the knowledge that you have in like art. But in animation, like it's hard to just like open a scene and just kind of do whatever, and then like hope it works, because there's like a lot of reasons why your animation can look bad, and like um, I think that's what like scares a lot of the students to begin with. But once you get through that, it doesn't get easier. But I think like your workflow gets cleaner, and you start to get a bit faster and stuff. Um, and yeah.
That's motivating to hear for sure, especially I think for people who want to get into animation or are in the starting phases and go through that
Yeah, yeah, don't give up.
difficult.
You got this.
So yeah, moving on to our second topic, you already touched upon this already, that you, after you graduated, you went to Ludia and worked there,
Mhm.
and then you started at Square Enix after that as a solo animator. This is where we met actually,
Uh-huh.
and this comes with a lot of responsibilities already. I think as like your second job in the industry. What was it like having that position for you?
Um, okay, so well, first of all, when I was hired at Square Enix, I was hired as a junior animator. Basically, I didn't have much experience, right? I only had maybe 1 year of experience at that time. So it was a pretty big role for me to fill in, and I'm still very grateful that they entrusted me with this role too, and I'm sure you feel the same way too, since you were our only environment artist, and being like a student and everything. There's like a lot of pressure, but we agree that like our team was very helpful and
Oh yeah.
like really there to support us and make sure to let us know that we're doing a good job, and we're doing exactly what we need to do and stuff. So yeah, it, although like I was always like I'm alone as an animator, the fact that it's such a small team, it was really nice. Because everyone's there for you, right? Like you can talk with like the gameplay programmer and like the designer
Yeah.
and the art team and even the producers. Like everyone was sort of like there for you, and you're never really alone, even if you're sort of alone in your craft. And I think that's where like that's like where our like solidarity and like our friendship comes from too, because everyone's like a solo something, so it's just like, hey, we feel the same way about everything, so we're just like sort of like connected that way, I guess.
Yeah, it was really amazing to see because you don't expect that, I think, from a big studio. Like you hear Square Enix, you're like, okay, it's going to be like 300
Yeah.
people working on a project. I'm not going to know anyone who does anything outside of my realm, and that's it. But then
Yeah.
being able to have such a close connection to everyone on the team and also learning a lot. I think even though there wasn't maybe somebody else who does the exact thing as you were
Mhm.
still learning a lot in many other aspects and many
Yeah.
other fields, and get like a complete different outlook on game development and not just
Yeah.
focus on your own craft all the time, 24 hours a day.
Uh,
That
yeah,
makes
for
sense.
sure. That's the thing, like that I really enjoyed about Square Enix, and it was a huge challenge too. It's just like I'm not just like it's not just about like animating. I had other responsibilities, like making like documentations for everything animation related. Working with the art director to create the like the animation pipeline and the rigging pipeline, dealing with outsource, and just communicating with other departments, which is hard to do. Like it's a skill that you acquire, like just trying to understand like what the programmers are talking about or what the designers are talking about. Like these are all skills that I probably wouldn't have learned until further on in my career. But I really like the fact that I learned it quite early.
Mhm.
So it was less about uh, working at Square Enix was less about uh, improving my craft as an animator, but more about improving my communication skills
Mhm.
and just becoming like a game developer and not just a game artist. Or yeah.
No, I think that's really great. But nonetheless, did you have any specific ways how you looked for mentorship during that time? Because obviously you improved in a lot of other areas, but I'm sure you also wanted to grow as
Mhm.
an animator and hone your skills in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. But I mean, that was one of the reasons why I felt like I had to leave Square Enix,
Mhm.
because it was still very early on in my career, and I needed more mentorship. But the ways that I seeked mentorship was, first of all, we had an amazing art director, and our art director has a background in 2D animation. He was a 2D animator in the past before everything else, and he helped me out a lot in not not necessarily understanding like the technical problems of like Maya and stuff, or technical issues of like animations, but more in the sense that like, he understood shapes, he understood like rhythm, he understood how to plan a shot, um, and all these things, and that was a really really helpful. Uh, he was a really really helpful person for that. I also spent a lot of time talking with one of the senior animators at Square Enix on another team. His name is Dan Sinet, and we did a lot of weekly animation challenges together, and that helped a lot too, because after every weekly animation session, we would try like different challenges, like
Mhm.
different types of animations, and we would spend like a couple of hours at the end of the week just giving each other feedback, and to help each other out to improve. And these are the type of things that like you need to put in that extra work to like sort of
Mhm.
seek, especially when you're a solo animator. And obviously, like we had fantastic artists on our team, and even if they don't necessarily like know animation, they could still support us in the more artistic, uh, the mentality of it, like the mindset of an artist and stuff. And that was like really helpful. And then I also had like online courses on the side. Yeah, it was a very jam packed experience, a lot
Mhm.
for the mentorships.
For sure. I think it was really admiring to see how you had that determination and energy to do all this on the side, because having like a new job and being new in the industry and, wanting to have mentorship and doing like such a big task on a interesting project and, learning new things, it's a lot at the
Yeah.
same time. And I think that also comes hand in hand with imposter syndrome. We've talked about this numerous times on the podcast, but I think it'd be interesting to hear from you. Did you have to deal with any imposter syndrome, or did you not, or what was it like for you? Because that's a lot of responsibilities laying on your shoulders during that time, and a lot to do, basically, and deal with.
Mm. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Imposter syndrome. Ah, imposter syndrome. Everyone, I feel like everyone, every artist or everyone in life, like has, some sort of imposter syndrome, like daunting them. And like for me, yeah, as a solo animator, like there was a lot of pressure, because everything that um, like my work was like the only work that they have right now. So if it's bad, then it's bad, right? Like nobody's there to like help me correct it or anything. But that's like a general pressure, as like a solo dev or solo artist or whatever. But as I mentioned, we had a very supportive team, to tell me like, oh no, it looks great, like what are you saying, like don't be crazy or anything. And I realized that like most of this imposter syndrome is usually like self-induced pressure, and yeah, we tell ourselves that it's not good when other people think that it's not that bad. And uh, to this day, like I still feel like I wish I had like more experience when I was at Square Enix. Like I wish I was more like of a senior by then, just because not only that my like animation skills would have been better, but also just uh, like my creative perception, I guess, just being able to think about things that I'm not able to think about right now, just because I'm
Mhm.
still like fresh in the industry, right?
Mhm.
But somebody with 10 years of experience, they might be able to unlock uh, these things like a lot quicker than me. So like I feel like I still have this imposter syndrome where I feel like I could have done better, but it's all in the past now, and I've learned ways to overcome those feelings.
And catching on to that, what ways did you find? Because we're always on the lookout on some neat tips and tricks to like apply, and I'm sure our listeners would love that as well. So what is your top advice to
Uh,
overcome or at least deal with imposter syndrome
yeah,
a bit better?
yeah. I don't think like personally, I don't think I could ever overcome it. But there are ways that over time and experience that I found to deal with it and to cope with it. And I think the main thing is to be able to identify and acknowledge that you do have imposter syndrome. Like one of our friends, Ernesto, he was telling me the other day that he feels like he's not even good enough to have imposter syndrome to begin with, and I'm just like, whoa, 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 hold on, that's imposter syndrome right there. Like, chill, you are good enough, and it's not based on like your level of experience. Like anybody could have imposter syndrome. Somebody who's not even an artist could have imposter syndrome, right? So it's just like it's learning, it's like pinpointing that, and then starting to tackle those uh, the things that are like triggering those thoughts. Like personally, like I like to talk about it, and I think that's super important. Like I'm very fortunate to have a partner who's there for me, and who's there to listen, even if she doesn't like totally understand the way I'm feeling. Like she's still there to help me, tell me that I'm not I'm just putting these thoughts in my head and stuff. And another way is to talk with seniors, because seniors feel the same way, and or a lot of seniors had the same experience or still feel the same way. And just knowing what they're going through and like the tricks that they've learned throughout the years helps a lot, and it's very reassuring. And of course, you could also seek professional help, because there are some people out there, like therapists, who are there for you. And even if they don't understand what you're exactly going through, like they understand, how the human mind works, and they understand how to teach you how to like manage and cope with these kind of things, because we don't learn that at school, right? We don't learn how to cope with these stressful thoughts and stuff at school. And like therapists are kind of there to help engage that mindset. And yeah, oh yeah, and there's one more thing. Sorry, I'm like taking up all the mic time.
Oh
But
no,
there's
it's
one more.
fine. It's your stage.
There's one more thing that I found really helpful, is to just test yourself with simple exercises. Like what I do when I'm ever feeling like I'm not good enough, because we all have bad days, right? Like there are some days that I come into work almost the whole day, like I'm just like trying to animate and I just can't do it, right? Like something about like today is just not working, and you're just fighting it all day, and it just gets worse and worse. And a lot of other people, like I know Mikhail from Pixar, he said it himself too, that like sometimes he has his off days and sometimes he can't properly animate. And like this is a thing, and it happens to a lot of artists. And like so the way like I uh, is that I do like simple exercises to remind myself that, like, one, I'm able to animate. And also when you do like small bite-sized exercises, it kind of like gives you that sense of accomplishment. And one cool thing is you could like, after, let's say like you have 1 year of experience at your job, and then you're feeling this imposter syndrome, you could do like a simple exercise, like a bouncing ball, or a head turn, or an emotion change, or something like that. Just something really simple and quick that you can do like within a day or less, like 3 hours or something. And then just do that, and then save it somewhere. And then maybe like 2 years later, when you're feeling the same way, you just do the same exercises, and then you can compare. You can see that, like, oh wow, like I did the same thing in the same amount of time, but it's better. Like the posing is better, the animation, it feels smoother, the arcs are there, and the polish is in there, and the speed is there. And this helps you like just get motivated and just feel like there's a sense of like improvement. And it's kind of like when you look at yourself like every day in the mirror. Or I guess like a good example for you, Jasmine, with your new dog. It was a baby before, but now it's an adult, or like it's older and it's bigger now, but you don't notice like you're seeing it every day, so you don't notice that growth. But like for those who like saw it when it was a baby, and then saw it like later, 2 months later when it's big, it's like, oh my god, it grew so much. Like, so it's good to like find ways to kind of like um yeah, to see the changes, because you're not going to notice that you're getting better um on a day-to-day basis. But if you have a comparison, then it can help you, and that really helps me like get motivated again, and to feel like I improved.
That's such a lovely thing to do, actually. Like, it's so simple yet effective. Like, I didn't even think about that. To even just like, I don't know, model something super basic and like texture, and be like, yeah, see, I can do this. Like,
Yeah.
make it more scary in my head. or next time I'll just look at Haru and be like, yep, there's
Yeah, exactly.
progress
Yeah,
sequence.
that was so everybody out there, just look at your dogs and remember how they were small and now they're big.
But yeah, I think this is like a nice part of the show to take a little break. So we're gonna stop right here and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to All Inclusive. Before the break, we talked about how Justin started as an animator in the industry and what it's like being a solo animator. And kind of moving on to our third topic, I wanted to ask you about your relationship with personal work.
All right.
Yeah.
My relationship with personal work. It's complicated, you know.
Oh no.
My personal work and work, like just work and personal work, like balance. I used to do a lot. Like as I mentioned earlier, like there was like the weekly animation challenges that I would do with Dan. I did a lot of I spent a lot of time doing like game jams too, and looking into like schools and doing schools and stuff, and just also just doing art for fun. And like this was like it was really fun and like great at first, because I wanted to improve and I had this constant need to sort of level up, but like at a fast pace. Mainly because like I wanted to stay relevant in the industry, and
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that if I worrying about the future, just like thinking if I don't keep this up, then like I'm gonna like not be good enough for like if I ever lose my job or something,
Mm.
just to make sure that I always have like a role. And right now I don't have children, but if I do, then I want to be able to constantly support them and stuff. So there's like a lot of like
Mm.
stress that comes in, and that's sort of like what was driving my my need for doing personal work. And I think that also links to when I was like studying drawing and then going into school and starting to work and everything. Like the ball was always rolling for me, so I never got used to like just slowing down. And
Mm.
that was like so that was sort of what was driving my personal work. And then
Mm.
you have like COVID situation, and then like it's harder to balance work and personal work situation where you're just always at the computer. And yeah, there's this saying like we're not working from home anymore, but we're living at work now.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely something we need to watch out for. And like personal work was just like hurting like my mental health in general too, I find. But not to say that people shouldn't be doing personal work, but for me it was it was like at first it started as like, this is so much fun, but it transformed into something that's like I felt more like I was doing it for my career or something,
Mm.
rather than doing it for fun and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's so multi-layered and complicated too, because there is so much pressure, like when you first start working, if you are like in any sort of range of like your 20s 30s or whatever, there's an expectation put there for you to like
Mhm.
work super super hard now so that you
Yeah.
set up yourself for like
Mhm.
later or whatever. Which I don't think that's necessarily bad advice, but I think if taken a little bit too far, it can be really damaging, because it
Yeah.
has for me for
Yeah.
sure, especially if your path in life with your career, whatever, is a little bit off the beaten path or whatever,
Mhm.
if things took you a little bit more time or you took a detour or whatever. And like, I know for me with personal work, it is like it's a complicated sort of like cocktail of me being interested in this thing that I'm doing because it's fun and I think it's going to be awesome. And then me being afraid, like you were kind of mentioning, me being afraid that, oh man, if I don't constantly work on my skills, then I'll become like I'll get behind and no one will want to hire me, and then I won't be competitive anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then mixed with, if I don't do any work and if I just kind of relax after getting off of work, then I'm not doing enough. Like, I haven't deserved rest yet. What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Go find something to do. And then if you're on social media, that's a whole other bear, because you constantly see people posting their works in progress, posting their finished projects, posting their, you know, their new jobs or whatever that they
Yeah.
just got. And it kind of feels like there's so much pressure
Yeah.
to perform right now.
Mhm.
And I think that can easily feed, and it has for me, it can easily feed into like a negative sort of relationship with personal work, because
Mhm.
like it, that line
You're
is
no
so
longer
blurry.
doing it for fun, you know.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And when you do things for fun, I think it's a little bit more sustainable, question mark, that way, because
Mhm.
it's like
Oh,
driven
yeah.
from truly from your own passion about a thing, and it separates itself from being an obligation. But it's really hard to, like, I think, kind of get there and kind of maintain that um, with personal work. And I kind of admire people who don't feel the need to do personal work.
Mm.
But I could never. I feel like for me right now, it feels like, it's so nice that so and so isn't doing personal work. But that could never be me. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, the other people can do it, but you have to keep working at it. You know.
Yeah. I for sure felt that way for a while, but you know, in the past year, like I've learned to you know, take control of my life and like to make the decision to not do personal work. Because before it was like, you know, I was driven by like wanting to stay relevant and you know, just feeling like I have to do something because everyone's doing something.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm a part of the like the anim challenge team, and like you know there are like lately there's like over 200 submissions like all the time, and you know I have to vote for like which one I find is like the best one and stuff. So I'm looking at so many of these, and it's really um, you know, I look at them and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I should be doing my own cool thing. I should be participating in the challenge and stuff like that. It was hard, but I had to, you know, take a step back and like slow down because, you know, I never had the chance to. And now it's making that realization and like finding new hobbies like away from the
Oh,
computer and
Yeah.
yes.
yeah,
I
and just like,
really
Oh,
just.
yeah, and just doing like personal work that like pleases me, like just doing it because it's fun, like without thinking too much about it. Because we do like, you know, 8 hours of work and then jumping onto personal project, like it's a lot for your brain. And you know my body's been feeling that strain too, you know, just like slouching over at the computer all
oh
day,
man.
and like my
Trim,
spine can
trim
feel it.
posture.
Yeah, and it's just like yelling at me like, hey, stop it. I'm just like, oh, okay. But like, you know, but you can't stop, you know, you're just like so focused.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
This is an audio sign to anyone listening to stretch your wrists right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And your spine.
And your
Do some
spine.
yoga.
Take some breaks.
Well, I think it's so good how you took a conscious choice to not do personal work, because that is some willpower right there. It's really difficult, and also difficult, I guess, to not feel guilty when you're doing that decision, because I
Mhm.
feel super guilty doing that. Like I am okay with not doing personal work right now because I know it's like a new job and I need to focus on that. But I
Mhm.
still feel guilty for not doing it. So I sometimes just sit after work at my computer and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I've got time, but
Mhm.
I also don't want to sit here. I should maybe just get up and do another thing, or to find a hobby, or like follow my hobbies that I have. But then, as like Ash said, when you see other people doing stuff, even though it's like completely unrelated to you, like they don't even, like, you know, it shouldn't be an influence on you what other people are doing. Like it's but it's hard to like shut that out from your brain.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gets super toxic, I think, to a point where you don't get like in this like state of like frozen mind that you just don't do anything. Like I don't, sometimes I end up not doing anything fun that is outside of art, and then just sit there and like scroll, I don't know, ArtStation or Twitter, and I'm
Mm.
like, I could have done something in this time, but I don't feel like it because I don't want to do personal work. It's like a vicious cycle in a sense, that you just don't end up doing anything like fun or not even not fun. It's
Yeah.
just like being upstate. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's different too, especially how for you, for example, like you built your career while you were at school, basically. So you were doing like you built like a group of followers and everything like while you were at school. And school is like the best time to do that because that's
Yeah,
the mindset you're in, because you need to like make sure that like you put your foot in the door like in the
yeah,
industry and everything. But then once you start working, it's like you start realizing these little things like, oh, like why am I still like, obviously it's important to like keep improving and everything,
yeah.
but like you don't have to do it like at the rate that you were doing in the past, and like that's totally fine. Like you deserve like a bit of rest too. And nobody, if anyone is telling you that like why, where's your personal work, like you haven't posted anything, like that's toxic. And you know what we
Absolutely.
do.
Like I wish I could print that out and put that on because I get messages like that. Believe me or not, it's
Wait,
been
really?
very yeah. It's very like it gives me anxiety. Like I don't even have anxiety about it. Like I'm fine. I'm doing my thing.
Mhm.
I'm just chilling. And then I get a message like that. They're like, "Oh, what are you working on right now? Is there anything you can show? Please tell me that you're working on a new project." I'm like, I'm actually not. Like, what do you want from me?
Okay.
I don't know. Like it's very scary. Like it makes me feel like I should like right now do something because somebody is expecting me that I am
Yeah.
doing.
And it's not even like a bad like they're not
Oh
trying
no.
to like roast you or anything
Oh no.
for that. It's just like, oh, like I love your work, like, oh, you must be working on something because you haven't posted in like 2 months. It must be like a huge, I don't know,
Oh, God.
AAA project, like some crazy stuff. But like I don't think it's like in bad intention. Maybe there are some
No.
people who say it in bad intention, um but yeah, like it really sucks that you get messages like that. And I hope that people understand that it's we have our own lives to take care of too, and mental health is always more important than uh, personal work and pleasing
Mm,
social media and stuff.
mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. Like, it's so easy. Stares at myself while I say this. It's so easy to just be busy for busyness sake, and that's something I'm trying to work on with myself because my hobbies have a degree of skill to them, and I'm trying to find I need to find a hobby that doesn't really, that either I don't care about skill with it or it's not as big of a deal or whatever, because I think that maybe if you like the feeling of like getting those achievements and stuff, it can be easy to like kind of sink into something like artistic or whatever that still makes you feel like I'm improving, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But doing things that will help you kind of just um, check out in a sense and not really worry about things like that, and just um, let yourself be a human, because like the better that you can take care of your brain and yourself, the better work that you'll do. So it really
Yeah.
is like more about having a more well-rounded approach, like getting some exercise in, drinking some water, and not just
Yeah.
coffee all the time and stuff. Like it's really like a whole thing that you have to watch. Yep, take a sip. It's really
I like how we're
important.
both drinking at the same time.
It's really important to, get all of that in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think I think like it's you know I find that it's sort of like a reverse psychology thing too, because some people do really enjoy like always working on personal work and stuff. And like I don't want people to think that like just because a lot of people are starting to talk about like mental health and things, that like they should stop doing personal work because it's hurtful for them or whatever. Like I think if you're enjoying it and you feel like this is for you, then like by all means like continue, and continue doing an amazing job. But for those who feel forced to do that, I think it's important to be aware that and it's okay to slow down and take a break sometimes, and don't worry about it too much.
So moving on to our last topic of this episode, since working remotely is like the biggest topic right now and in the past year, What was it like for you going from working on site within a studio and then starting a complete new position off site from home? Is there anything that you realized was particularly difficult or something that was better than you experienced before?
Yeah, for me, I what I loved about not only Square Enix but like just being in an office was just like the human interaction and like the just being around people and like taking small breaks to just chat with the person next to you, little things like that, and just communicating and human interaction. And that's definitely something that I miss. But I don't think that like work from home is like bad either, because I think my job is like going like going perfectly fine like remote as well. Like I like to I don't know I like to be at home too, and I'm like a home dweller, so just being at home is like nice and cozy, and um, it's not like it's not putting like a toll on me or anything. Like I like social interaction, but I still consider myself like as an introvert, so I like to stay in my bubble too. Um, and yeah, the hard part about starting a new job um, uh, at remote is like first of all like the onboarding is hard for sure, and having like casual talks is like barely existing. Like of course you have to like take that extra step to try to get like that casual talks going kind of thing. Like we can't do like we used to where we would go like karaokeing and stuff. And like particularly in my situation, because like everyone on my team, like all the animators on my team are sort of like spread out all over
Mhm.
North America. So it's even harder to get that like a friendship outside of work kind of thing. Like obviously I try my best to have like little conversations, but it's not the same. Um, and one thing that I noticed was like a bit harder was for like getting information or getting feedback for animation, because we have like our weekly animation reviews and stuff, and that's fantastic, and my team is so good at giving feedback. And this is something that I was seeking right when I was looking for a new job. But like when we're not having like the animation reviews, maybe I'm working on something and I would like to have some feedback. Like the one of the only ways I could get feedback is just posting it on our Slack channel and just like waiting for somebody to answer. And in a situation where at a studio, like we can just poke the person like next to us or our lead or whoever, and ask them like, hey, can you give me feedback? Or maybe they'll pass by and they'll be like, oh, you should try to fix this or whatever, you know. But like now it's just like I just have to post it on Slack and sort of wait and then like hope that somebody answers, because we're all animators, we're all artists, so sometimes we're so focused on our work that we don't even look at Slack for the whole day. So you just post it and like hope that somebody opens Slack at some point, and then if they do, then they'll give fantastic feedback. If they don't, then you don't know when it's gonna come. So you're just like either like waiting, working on another thing, or you're like, shit, I need to finish this. I have a deadline, so I'm gonna just keep working on it and hope that it's the right direction and stuff. And that's not like the best way to approach things, but sometimes like that's the case, because you can't just wait and like be idle. At that point, I would suggest to like actually poke people individually and be like, hey, do you mind like giving me quick feedback on this and stuff? But if you like forget to do that or something, or if you're like not in the mood or whatever, then you might be waiting for a bit longer, and there's like that latency for feedback. But apart from that, yeah, I think it's fine. Like I enjoy like having a remote team.
Mhm.
It's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, but there are these little faults, I guess.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot because I'm also working complete remote and my team is in the US and we have like a couple of people in Europe. And it is like quite difficult, as you said, to have that social interaction like we had before. And like my first big social like interaction I had with like studio and stuff like that was at Square Enix, and having that in comparison to being at home and just being on the
Yeah.
same spot I've been in the past 3 years feels weird. Like even being in the same room but having like a new job, and it's really odd, but it has a lot of benefits. Like you said, it's like you have this team that gives you feedback. You have this opportunity to grow, even though you are remote, but you just have to go that extra step. But I think you are pretty good at that because you also seeked out mentorship and all these like extra things in your previous job. So I think it's a skill that you can acquire as well, and makes you like come out of your shell, I guess, a bit more as well. If you are put in this position, you need feedback and you need like to put in that extra mile into making connections with people. And
Yeah.
if you do it, and people are always open to that, like
Yeah.
it's just taking that step, I think.
Yeah, it's just that extra obstacle being in the way.
Yeah, exactly.
And like yeah, and Ash, like being like a freelance artist, like you must know this feeling, right?
Yeah, working, like, since I haven't had like the experience yet of like working in studio versus working strictly, like I've only worked from home, like I've never been able to pop over to someone and be like, hey, can you take a look at this, and then they can trot over and look at my stuff. It's like there is like a little bit more of like a longer time that I have to wait sometimes, and part of the trick is trying to make sure that I'm staying occupied all day in the waiting time, because there just is going to be waiting time with work from home situations, like someone could be in a meeting, like, or for me in my situation right now, the people that I'm working with are on the West Coast. So when I am waking up, starting my day, it is 6 a.m. for them. So like even if I start doing something and I need feedback on something, like right now, it's like, oh, you're asleep. I can't expect a message back right now, so then I have to find something else to do and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely been like a learning experience. And then also like I think this kind of goes for all like work from home situations. Like I think you kind of realize just how much more important it is to communicate well. Communicate something quickly and communicate something well when you're having an issue with something, because it's like if you don't, then it'll cause more confusion, which will make things take longer, which is bad for everyone, because they have a meeting in 5 minutes that they have to go to, and then you still your problem isn't solved and stuff like that. So like it's been teaching me to be like a little bit better like with how I describe a problem that I'm having, and making sure I take pictures of the thing to help or whatever, like just making sure I'm communicating more properly with like a work from home situation or whatever, because it just hits different.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, like miscommunication through these. Like there's a lot of that, especially because like there's so many like ways that people like chat too sometimes. Like I like to put like a lot of exclamation marks and like smiley faces and stuff, but some people don't, and sometimes you're not and to them they're just saying like, they in their head they might be saying like, hey, how are you, but like when they type it's just like, hey, how are you, period. And you're just like rude.
For sure.
So
It's cool to hear like a different perspective from somebody like who wasn't in house before. So it's like I think it's really good to learn from you as well for that, in that sense.
I think for me, with the freelance stuff that I'm doing now, being all remote and stuff like that, it really is only further preparing me for like future freelance gigs or any sort of like in-house situation or whatever, because then English doesn't work. I will have been working on communication skills or whatever. So when I am in an in-house situation, I'll be that much more exact when it comes to expressing certain problems that I'm having on a thing or whatever. But yeah, I personally have just found that like the more questions I ask and the sooner I ask for help and stuff, the better, because it's just like if I don't, then it's wasting everyone's time and stuff like that, and I'd rather not do that. So and plus like something that I'm also trying to remind myself, and maybe it'll be good for other people to hear, is that like for me right now, when it comes to the stuff that I am doing. The only thing I'm trying to worry about is putting forth my best effort, and then showing that as soon as possible, as soon as I get to the out. And then after I like send it to like my lead or whatever for approval, it's like out of my hands in a way, because it's like, it's not a singular process. Like, it's not just you working on something, like someone is checking you and stuff like that. So there's a lot of trust that comes with that. There's like, I trust my lead to tell me that, hey, you just need to do this way. And then it's like, okay, cool, I'll just do it this way. Like, I've been working really hard to like separate myself a bit from like the process, because otherwise it could be kind of like, I don't want to say hurtful, but it can be kind of like rough, like going through and iterating on a thing over and over and over again. But if you kind of like, but if I try to look at it like, I'm just going to put my best foot forward and then show it, and then they'll let me know what's up. Okay, they'll let me know what's up. Okay, now let's try to do this or whatever. Trying to think about it that way, I think, has been helpful. And so maybe that can like, it's hard to kind of do that, I think, maybe, but I think it's a thing that's worth doing. Because
sure.
I don't know, like people are there to help, you know, especially if they brought you on the team in the first place. Like everyone wants you to succeed, you know, like this is a team sport, you know.
Yes, I think we all forget super quickly that I think we said that a lot of times too, that we don't have to know everything, and we are not alone in this, and game development as a whole is like such a team effort. Like you don't ever just do something 100% by yourself, except if you made Stardew Valley, that's another topic. But if you're like on a team like we are, it's different. Like you're not gonna have to like be Hercules and take everything on your shoulders and be like, I'm gonna wing this by myself. It's not how it works. And I think we forget that quickly and think that people expect so much from us, but it's like, no, they just want us to be honest and like, you know, do our work and do our best, and that's what we're doing anyway. So we should just calm ourselves down and trust in ourselves a bit more, I think.
I think in a sense, like this whole remote thing is like is great, because it's teaching us these little things that we wouldn't have learned, like proper communication and stuff, and in a way, like obviously it's been pretty bad, like for the whole year and a half or 2 years even. I've lost count, but you know, at least we got something from it. You know, we learned something from this whole remote situation thing. But I know another like topic for remote working especially is focus, and I know a lot of people who struggle with focus, just because like they're not unfortunate obviously, but like they have like children in the house, and you know, running around playing around. They have like I don't know, a very needy dog or a needy cat or anything like that, and you know, sometimes like focusing during this work from home situation can get a bit hard. For me, like I don't think focusing is the hard part, because I don't have that many distractions around me. But it's really the opposite, actually. I get over focused. So you know, there's nothing, I feel like, since I'm like working from home and stuff, and like sometimes my my clock is like not even showing or something. So I just end up like working too much, and like I had a hard time like differentiating like, you know, when I should stop and when I shouldn't, just because I'm at my desk. I don't need to like leave the studio or whatever, so I'm just like over focused and just like working, and next thing you know, it's like midnight, and you're just like, whoa, time passed fast. And that's like that was one of my biggest issues that was quite hurtful for me when I started working from home. But luckily, you know, I have a partner that constantly reminds me, like, hey, you should stop now. Oh, it's time to go to bed now. And it's like, oh crap, you're right. And like, you know, kind of like pulling me out of the chair. I also have a cat that, like, you know, on a schedule, she like comes to me and she like starts meowing at me and stuff, and then jumps on my table and then goes on my keyboard and my mouse and stuff. So you know, it's kind of like that break, like, okay, come back to reality now. Give me attention, human. And then, like, you know, I pick her up, I put her on my lap, pet her for a bit until she's like, okay, that's enough, and then she leaves. And then I'm like, okay, back to work. And you know, that kind of like helps me take breaks and like to separate and like just remembering like it's important to take breaks, and maybe even have like a timer. There's like something called like the Pomodoro that a friend of mine showed me, and it's like this thing where like you work for like 20 minutes and you take like a short break, and then you work for 20 minutes, like short break, like 2 minutes or 5 minute short break, drink some water or whatever. And it's kind of like this reminder, and it's supposed to help you like stay like productive. But like productivity isn't like my issue. It's just like being like too focused, that's the issue. So for some people it might help. But yeah, for me it's definitely has been a problem. And it would be nice to be at an office again, just to have like that break. But yeah.
Right. I think we now reached like the end of this episode. Just to like quickly summarize what we talked about. Justin went over how he got into the industry, and I think it's super interesting how you didn't have a super linear path, that you tried out several things, and then after a while you found your passion for animation, and then really put your all into that to get into the industry as quick as you could, which I think is very impressive within a year. And at Square Enix, you had such a crucial position being a solo animator at such a early stage in your career. But what I think is really important for people to take away from this is that you can make the best out of it, and it teaches you a lot of different skills in a lot of different areas, and gives you such a more broad look on game development. And being like Justin, seeking out for mentorship yourself, being active outside of work, trying to educate yourself beyond your work desk, if that makes sense, is super crucial to still keeping up your skill level, and being ready to tackle like a new job, because then after that you found another position that gives you that type of mentorship on site, and that you don't necessarily need to seek it out so much anymore. Which then leads us to our last topic, where you also then decide to actively not do personal work and take time for yourself, and try to engage in other activities that don't revolve around work necessarily. And I think that's a super interesting approach, because we don't really hear about that much, that it's okay to not do personal work. If you obviously want to, as you said as well, it's okay, do it. We support you in that, but we also support you in not doing it and taking that well-deserved rest, which I think is a really good thing to keep in mind for all of us in this case. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Justin. We were really excited to have you and sharing all your insights with us. And we will share all the social media links where you can find Justin in the description of whatever you're listening on right now. You can find his animation work on Twitter, and yeah, you should definitely check that out. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you had a lot of fun talking with us, because I'm sure we both did.
Thanks so much for having me, for real.
Yeah,
I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, yay!
You.
Coming on for sure. And if anyone listening would like to suggest someone to join us on the podcast, someone who's a great positive force within their community, along with being great at what they do, please send us an email at allinclusivepodcast@gmail.com. That's all-inclusive, no spaces, pdcst@gmail.com. They can be a 2D artist, 3D artist, animator, tech artist, QA person, art director, literally anyone. They just have to be cool and nice. That is it.
Yay. So thank you everyone for listening and joining us for our 10th episode of All Inclusive. We hope that you had just as much fun listening to us as we do the talking, and you can find us on a couple of different social media channels. You can find these in the links of the description box below, and that's going to include Twitter, YouTube, and Spotify. And a little disclaimer, we will do a summer break from after this episode, and we'll come right back in September with a brand new episode of All Inclusive. So I hope you all have a great summer, and hopefully see you very soon. Thanks again, and we hope you'll join us for another episode of All Inclusive.